Hello there, and welcome to another DEMU UK Deanly Railway Modelling Hangout. Going to be just chatting about all sorts of things that we like about model railways. And I think the first thing we should talk about is Showcase and how great it was. I really enjoyed it again. And we have Guy, one of the people who made that happen here.
Hi.
Hi, Guy. Good job on Showcase.
Yeah, it was a great show. I mean, credit to John really for selecting a fantastic set of layouts again. Yeah, fabulous set of layouts, and not a single one that didn't really deserve to be there.
I'd agree with that. It was actually, I think it was actually one of the best he's done. For it was a really good weekend.
Mm. Yeah,
that was reflected as well on the forum with the thanks post, which makes my job easy writing a bit of a retrospective for update about it, because I'm basically just quote the forum to some extent a little bit.
Yeah, makes it a bit easier.
Yeah, I particularly like Shelvington, although it's not my modelling era. You know, it's a bit late 70s, early 80s kind of period. In fact, no, it's all late 70s, isn't it? Whereas I prefer Intercity and Network South East and things of that nature. You know, that's more my period of time. But even so, the detail, that's what makes it.
Yeah, they've got at Scale Forum last year. It won the York Trophy, which it's the first time any diesel and electric local layout has ever won that at a Scale Forum event. So that was quite significant. I think it put a couple of people's noses out of joint that a diesel and electric, especially a third row electric layout won. But that's down to their own misgivings, I suppose. But I think at that show, what attracted people was the working Solari destination board. Because one thing I got a chance to do at Showcase was Matt and Lee invited me and Natalie to have a go operating it, and it was really quite impressive how it's computer controlled behind the scenes.
I think that was one of the things I did like, the computer control. Or not only that, it's also the monitoring. There's CCTV cameras around, so the controllers can see exactly where everything is and how it's working. Yeah,
it's all shows. It's all automated. If I share, I'm not sure if this is going to work. If I share the screen, I don't know if you can see that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Let me,
you can see basically the way it works is you click a button up here and then you drag one to where you want to, and then you do the same. And then on the TV, there's also a screen on the TV where you tell it where it's actually going. So let's stop the screen sharing. That's it. Oh, hang on. That's better. And so once you set the route, you then have to tell people where it's going, which then updates the Solari on the display thing on the front of the layout. So it's really quite complex, but actually really quite simple in some respects as well.
I think that's I did something similar for a model railway club I was involved with a few years ago. Basically, we used DCC and I used JMRI with a computer interface to set routes for it. So the design of it was that effectively it was a fiddle yard at the top, going around to a station at the front, and back into back to a fiddle yard again, and then there was a branch line around the back at the top. And I designed it so that it was simple to use, because when you've got something like DCC, if you've got to say, okay, so I've now got to set a train from track number 1 going around the layout, and I've got to check that it's, you know, this point and that 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 point and so on. You've got to go round the route to find out and make sure it's set the right way and so on. By the time you've done that, it could be, you know, if you've got 10 points to change, and to do that, you've got to press F5, you know, and then it's point number 14. So 14, enter, and that needs to be set, and then you exit out. And that's only if you're familiar with it, if you remember it all. And then you select the next point and so on and so on. Well, that 2 or 3 minutes that it takes you to do that is the difference between someone still standing at the front of the layout and them have walked away. You know, if they don't see something moving for 3 minutes, they're gone. Even though that's what the real railway is like, of course. You'll sit there for ages and then the train turns up. But
yeah, I think that's partly why Shelton at exhibitions they do it like that, so that there's constantly something moving, so that, and they can actually then also go around the layout and talk to people about the layout as well, because they only need really one person to operate it, and the other people can be checking the stock and then talking to people about how. Because they do get a lot of people drawn to ask questions, especially about the Solari thing, like I've said before. I mean, my own layout that I'm planning with Natalie, it's kind of planned to be operated using the Merg C-Bus and DCC systems, but it's also going to be run using JMRI. So I'm aiming to have a similar sort of setup to what they have on Shelvington, but for a hell of a lot less money, because as good as it is, that is a very expensive setup for that level of control to some extent. You know, and that's not within most people's budgets potentially.
But having a system like that means that you can spend time with the people at the front,
which I think is important at a show. People will ask questions, and you know, and if you're, you know, as long as you're happy to talk to people, then you know that's all to the good. You know, it gets people engaged, and you know, if you're exhibiting, that's really what you're there to do. You're there to engage with the public, and you know, maybe not so much inspire them. You know, if you do, then that's great. But if you get them interested, then they go away with another idea in the head, maybe, or they go, "Oh, I like that." And mate, it's like you said, you don't have any real interest in that period, you know. And there's a lot of people who potentially will prefer Steam, and they'll look at that layout and they'll look at how much detail is there, and so on. And if you know, and then there's the people who, like me and Natalie, when we look at it and go, "Oh, that's half of an 8 VAB. What's that doing there?" That, you know, you spot the unusual, which on a layout like that, there is a lot of unusual formations.
I think you've got to be careful though, because it's a small layout. Don't have too many unusual things, because next thing you know, everything.
They run them occasionally, so I think part of it is they run it out because Natalie had turned up potentially that. Yeah, you know, as we were saying, well done to showcase, really.
Yeah.
And I suspect,
Yeah,
like everyone, a lot of people have said on the forum, you know, they're looking forward to next year already. I don't think you could get much better feedback, really. Which is credit to John and Guy and the team and that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the only show that I must go to. For me.
I think that's true for all of us.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing this hobby for a fair amount of time, and I remember, was it Model Rail 92? I think was the first, or one of the first, you know, proper D&E shows. And I think if I remember, it might have been. I'm trying to remember now. I think it was Model Rail 94, which I think was down in what was it called? Just up from Watford Junction.
Albans.
St Albans, yes, that was it. And I think that was where DEMU was launched. Because I remember these people with computers and interested in doing this modern image society. And it's like...
yeah, I think DEMU was set up sometime around 95, 96, if I remember rightly.
Well, Showcase 2005 was the 21st anniversary show, so it must be 1994.
Yeah, I think that's when they were just launching it as a, let's see how many people are interested. I remember it because it was the same show that the Lima 59 was launched. I can't remember his name, the chap at Rico was wandering around with a prototype showing off. It's like, ooh. And of course, the funny thing about it is now, if we saw something, something like the Lima 59 launch today, it'd be like, this is a bit old-fashioned, isn't it? Greenfield motor, and it's amazing how much we've changed. We're a little more critical these days.
Yeah, it's come on a great deal. I mean, standards are so good now that even you compare. I mean, I don't know about any of you guys, but most of my Lima stuff went a long time ago, apart from a couple of 47s and touching on the 59 that Dave mentioned. I've still got a 59 tucked away somewhere, and you compare it to stuff that's available now, and there's just, you can't really compare the standards, really. It's good. The Lima stuff was good for its time, but standards change, and the hobby moves on, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah,
I think generally Lima stuff was very accurate in terms of the body shape in the 33 apart. Really, you're just talking about level of detail and the quality of the mechanisms.
Yeah, I mean, effectively, we needed someone, and I think that someone was Bachmann, to take us from 1960s technology to what everyone else was going with. The continent and America were using, ring central can motors with flywheels and drive shafts leading to bogie towers, 20 years before we started doing it. And, I think as much as Bachmann made a few errors here and there, I think they deserve a lot of credit for bringing us into the late 20th century into the 21st century with the levels of detail that we get.
To drag the others with them a little bit. It's taken time, but things have changed quite a bit since then, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, you take Hornby, for example. When I was a kid, they were great. But then, you look at Lima stuff compared to it, and you think, oh, that's much better. The Lima 47 compared to the Hornby one. And, effectively, Hornby was a toy train company. I know that sounds a weird thing to say it, but, when they were making Hornby Mark III coaches an inch too short because of the go-round first radius curves, they were saying that train sets were more important. And, it's taken that journey where we now credit them as being, as good and sometimes better, depending on the model, as the other companies. The 50 and the 60 and the 56, I think, are astounding models.
Yeah, I second that, Dave. Yeah, I mean, I've only got two of if you like, new generation Hornby models, to be honest. 50 and 56, as you say. I haven't got 31, but yeah, I mean, compared to, again, comparing them to some older models, I've got there's an old in a stock box somewhere, mainline 56, which I did up, but even comparing the two, they're both good, but detail, particularly in underframe area, the Hornby model just, it shines through, basically. Same with the 50 as well. It's both good models, as you say. I think they've come on quite a long time. I mean, which is good. I mean, the the old Hornby 08 springs to mind. I remember having one many years ago. It's the body I thought was okay, sort of mold quality wise with all the equipment boxes and things, but the dreaded underframe that they put on it was just what can you say?
It was off a
It was, yeah, it was.
The fact that Thomas the Tank Engine went on that way and the 08 Shunter went on that way, it shows it. But like I say, things have changed an awful lot.
It's changed, and that's good, and it's good that it has. It will continue to change for the better.
I do. The only thing I worry about the diesel electric scene is that we're getting to a point where, in terms of locos, everything's been done.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's only the AC electrics that are still waiting to be finished off. We got a 90 that's coming eventually. We got an 87 that Hornby have announced. So a lot of these, we still got a few holes. Maybe with Dapol and Pico's electrification, that will incentivize manufacturers to saying, okay, people are starting to get wires now. Now we've got something for them to go under. Maybe we should start making these available. Yeah.
I think there's still a few little gaps there, as you say, but hopefully I'm sure they'll get filled eventually. And then even saying that, even new models, taking locos as an example, they can still be improved in certain ways. Not necessarily mean, cutting them up and converting them into something else. Even just things like renumbering, Dave, as you touched on with your 47 video, even stuff like that, or adding extra detail bits and pieces. I think even though new models will always be available and the standards will always be good, that things can still be improved.
Yeah, I think the thing we have to be aware of is that the hobby is becoming something of a collector's thing, that people are collecting models and not really doing anything with them other than putting them on the layout. And I said something in my introduction video for the channel that, you kind of go to a show and you see the same loco on 5 layouts. I find that irritating.
Yeah. What's even more irritating is when that loco is something really esoteric.
Yeah.
I mean, what the video I made on the 47, the res one, almost every single one of them has got names. But if you look at, a lot of the models that are coming out, they usually named examples. One of the most frustrating ones for me was when Beckman brought out their 47 in parcels livery, 47474. Which has a massive long nameplate, and I wanted it to be 479 Trek 29 with a little tiny nameplate. How'd you get rid of that? So I wanted something that was different. There was too many named locos on layout, so to speak, instead of generic, ones that, the bog standard thing that you forget. It's like, oh yeah, it's another 47.
Yeah. It's just the standard work-a-day stuff, Dave, isn't it? I mean, I remember back to, when I was young and my parents would take me down to the local main station and we used to watch all the freight trains going through there, obviously not every single loco that you'd see would be named. You might spend an hour or two, and you might only see one named loco there. As you say, Dave, you go to some shows and virtually every loco on a layout has got a name, and it's nobody really, people forget about the work-a-day stuff. Weren't very special, or they weren't celebrities or things like that. They just did the job that they were built for, and that's what it's about for me. Modeling you know, I model named locos like anybody else, but I try not to have too many. I prefer to sort of touch on the more sort of standard stuff, really stuff that you would forget.
I think the interesting part comes into the details that you find out about them. I mean, for example, one of my favorite 47s is 47053, which was a blue-gray loco for Tinsley, and it had an unofficial name, Impala. But it was interesting in its own way because it had snowplows, and it's very unusual in that normally when it's got a flush end at the number 1 end. Normally when you get a flush end in, they you know, they flatten it out and they stick in you know, some recessed lift up lenses. On this one, it kept its, you know, the rubber grommet with the frosted glazing inside.
Oh yeah.
I believe it's one of only 3 locos to have it, and one of the other ones is a weird one in itself. 47210, which had a collision, a small collision, and I think it was repaired at Eastfield. And it's got a plate over the top. So if you know, instead of being something that was, you know, sanded down, they literally, you know, welded on a metal plate over the top with a hole in it, and they put the rubber grommet and frosted glazing in. And when you look at it, you can frequently you find there's a line underneath where the dirt gets and it doesn't get cleaned. I'll see if I can find a photo. But keep talking while I find it.
Yeah, we touched on that one last week in our chat, Dave, didn't we? Sorry, the other guys might not know, but me and Dave had a brief chat last week, and that was one of the locos we got talking about, and we sort of decided that trying to recreate that in model form, it would, to people who don't know about it, they would instantly say, well, you know, you didn't do a very good job of that. But that's how the loco looked. If Dave can find a photo, he does look a bit of a sort of quick job, you know, sort of quick fix and mend sort of thing.
Yep, get it fixed, get it out there, and get it back on the line.
Get it back out there. Yeah, but on a model, you know, it would. I think it would be tricky to do. Well, not tricky to do. Tricky to get it looking right, I should say.
Yeah, there you go. So you can just see around the edge here.
It's right above the headlight. Yeah,
and it goes right onto you know, just finishes around the handrail line. But you can see there's that line underneath. And if someone's to model that, they think, oh, you've done a half-assed job there, haven't you? No, actually, I've done it.
No. That's exactly how it looked. It's one of those things you almost always have to carry the photo with you just to say that this is how it was.
Yeah. I've got another example. Let's see if I can find it. So this is 33053, and usually you find on 33s they've got a lump, you know, a dent in there. But what happens is, and the reason is when the coupling's put on, it dents the body shell. And well, this loco has just got a butchered end. It looks like it's got the dent in it, and then someone got a crowbar behind it and tried pulling it out, and it just didn't look right. You know, I want to model this, and it's like, how do you model this without it looking like a ham-fisted rubbish job? It's like, yeah, it really looked like this.
It's a bit of a challenge.
Mm.
Yeah,
so
to get it looking right. So, it might be doable, but a bit like the 47, Dave, it's one of those things that, you know, people would say, oh, you know, that looks a bit half-assed, but no, like that's how it was.
I've actually got a couple of comments in the side in the watch hangout. Says Tay said, "Aren't loco names a relatively modern thing? I remember watching BR Blue 37s and 47s on the Goblin back in the day." And Nick Gurney says, "I agree, Tays. Modeling DRS as I do, more locos are named than not named." It is a reality that. I mean, names are an interesting one because, you know, there's some that have got names, and then the other ones were almost they were almost publicity concepts, you know, where they're trying to publicize, you know, how well the coal mining industry is going with mutual improvement, you know, or you know. Talking about a new freight run or something like that, and you know, it's almost like, okay, we're going to have some kind of press launch to launch this new service, and we're going to stick a name on a loco. What's it going to be? And you know, they prepare for that, you know. But I kind of like that, and as well, because that's showing a part of what the railway was about, you know. Back in the time where trucks were taking over and rail, you know, freight was dropping and declining, because it's declined an awful lot, especially since coal has faltered in this in the last couple of years. You know, it's kind of sad in a way, because as much as I recognize the benefits of, you know, other forms of energy than coal, I actually quite like the idea of coal trains running, you know, MGR backwards and forwards, Colorado Power Station. You know, it takes me back to the days where I used to go to Toten and sit on top of the hill on an overnight on a Friday night and watch all the 58s, except for a handful that were at Bescott, come home for weekend maintenance. And, you know, you'd just see loco, you know, you'd see a 56 in the dark coming from the Derby end, coming from the south end. And you'd just see the three lights coming, and you'd know, oh, that's a 56. Which one is it? Binoculars out. You know, I enjoyed seeing that. I enjoyed seeing, you know, watching the difference between the speed of sound and the speed of light, where a shunter has sent a MGR hopper heading off towards a rake, and then going clunk. You know, you see it hit, and a second later, you hear the clunk. I like that. I miss that.
Yeah, it's quite worrying in a way that apart from the coal traffic, you know, there's freight as a whole has really, you know, it's really declined over the years, as you say, Dave, and it's, you know, it doesn't look as though it's getting any better. Really, it's a shame. I mean, one wonders that how long freight will last.
I think
as a whole, you know, I know.
It's always going to last.
I know.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I mean, for one, living in South Wales down here, apart from the coal traffic, which is really, you know, pretty much non-existent now. Even the steel industry, you know, that's always. So, you know, we don't have a lot of freight down here, you know, taking my area as an example, really. The only DB flows that we've got is the steel work and the tank trains from West Wales. That's it. We've got colas that have come in to take a couple of flows, and we used to get Freightliner run the coal trains, but they've obviously finished now. So it's sad, really. It's I mean, I remember a time where back in the day you'd go to the main station and you'd spend an hour there, and you might see, you know, who knows how many freight trains. Now, if I pop into the city centre, you know, occasionally, as I do, you know, if I have to look up to see if there's anything in particular running that I might want to photograph, because now you could wait for 3 hours and not see a single freight train. So it just goes to show how much it's declined, and it's sad.
Yeah, I used to go to Newport a lot for that.
Yeah, Newport was always good.
Mm.
Yeah, I used to really enjoy Newport because, of course, you get all the stuff coming off from AD as well. So that was good, and I miss all that. I miss that.
That's the reason why I got more interested in the model railways. That as the real railway changed, and you know, the old trains that I liked were replaced by new shiny things. You know, that. I mean, this is going to sound like the weirdest thing. Okay, I actually like 142s. I find them charismatic in a kind of, you know, workaday sense. You know, and I'll be sad when they go, because as crappy as they are, in effect, they are a part of the railway. You know, the secondary. You know, I mean, believe it or not, they're actually one of the most efficient units around. Because, sorry?
If they use a lot of problems.
Yeah. You know, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to explain. Why do I like 142s? You know, everybody else is like, oh, awful things. You know, I've done my fair share of, you know, wincing as you go around a tight corner at Mars Platting. You know, as the long wheelbase is making the wheels squeal, you know, scream through the windows, and you know, I mean, I think one of the most amusing things I've ever seen on 142 was I was going up to, I can't remember what it was. It was Wigan. It might have even been for the Wigan show. I don't think it was though. No, it was. Sorry, it was. It was the Wigan show on a Sunday morning. I was going to, you know, do the second day, and previous train had been delayed. So this 142, single 142 was, and there was engineering work going on as well. So I think the West Coast Main Line was shut up to Preston. So they were having to divert things around and whatever. For whatever reason, this one was packed. And I remember getting off at Wigan, and I was near the door, so I was off pretty quick. But I remember thinking that there were so many people. So I got out and I looked at the height between the platform and the door. And I watched as it emptied it get higher and higher and higher because the springs had been compressed right down. You know, I remember going on bouncy track and stood there and, you know, bouncing around. I enjoyed that. You know, that is a part of riding on the trains. But, you know, those are coming to an end, and they'll be replaced by something nice and shiny that and then cascade other stuff. So the 150s, 156s will replace the 142s, you know. But, you know, there's a difference between my brain and my heart, so to speak, that, you know, my rational mind knows that a Pendolino going from Manchester to London is far better than the previous stuff that went before it, that it accelerates faster and it tilts on corners and it does 125 miles an hour instead of 110, that kind of thing. You know, I recognize that. But for me, nothing beats an 86, 87 or a 90, you know, with a Breaker Mark 3s and a DVT on it. You know, that is always going to have a special place in my heart. And the sad thing is, I'm finding myself sounding like the guy from, you know, 25 years ago, where I'd go on Piccadilly Station or something like that, and I'd get some old guy in his 50s telling me how I preferred it in the old days when everything was green or everything was blue and it wasn't a class 47, it was a brush type 4. And I'd be thinking, come on, get with it. You know, you've got all these nice bright colour schemes, Intercity and Network South East and Rail Freight and Regional Railways and things of that nature. And now I look at the Rail Railway, and unless they're slapping you in the face with their neon lines or the swoosh, unless they're slapping you in the face with their logo, you're not going to notice them. You know, that the lines don't really follow the train anymore. You know, I look at the new Northern livery, and it's basically a dark blue, purpley blue swoosh on the end, and then it's just plain white or off white with some blue doors. That's boring, don't you think?
And the only reason doors will be blue is
Yeah.
because of disability regulations. If they didn't have that, then the doors would probably be white.
Well, I don't have any problem with the doors being a different color, but having a plain white, you know, unit with, you know, just a bit of color on the end, you know,
It doesn't make you notice it.
no.
Whereas a livery like Intercity Network Southeast, you know, you noticed it. It was, I won't say in your face, but yeah, you realized it. It made you notice it.
Hmm. If this one will
Yeah. I mean, liveries today, I mean, the fact that they're mostly done with vinyl is, it seems as if somebody sort of sat in an office and sort of went, okay, we'll put this on a vinyl and slap it on the side of something. That doesn't really appeal to me.
Yeah, here we go. This is the new Northern livery.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and you can see,
yes.
blue doors, and there's nothing else.
It's very plain looking, Dave, isn't it? Even though it's got the logo on the white, it's still, you know, it's really plain.
And if you look, many of the others are like that as well. You know, the new Class 700s on the Thameslink line, they're white with some light blue doors. And you just think, couldn't you think of something better?
There's bound to be a reason why they've chosen those colours, though, because I think in BR times they deliberately didn't choose white if they could help it, because they couldn't keep them clean enough. They didn't have the facilities that they probably have now at the depots to keep them clean.
Yeah.
Probably what it is modern units now, you would think, would probably go through a washer at the end of each day, whereas potentially in BR days they wouldn't. You know, certainly not until like the times of Network Southeast. Certainly not during the 70s.
I'm trying to find a picture of a unit I took a few years ago.
Part of it would be laziness as well.
Yeah. It's not a fantastic shot because it was getting a bit dark at the time. But, you know, this was a few years ago when they had a bit of a problem with... it was in the winter, so it was November. No, it was January, sorry. So this was in January. And the trains were being cleaned in the evening when they went back to the depot. But unfortunately, because of the freezing temperatures, the washing plant machine was getting frozen up, so they couldn't wash them. So they just didn't bother. And I've made a joke about if you've ever seen World War II, you know, aeroplanes, you know, the American olive drab things. Olive drab is paint is made out of black and yellow. If you mix them together, it makes this greeny brown color. And I kind of made the joke with this is that the front end of this is so filthy that the front ends are practically olive drab. It's it's yellow with black all over it.
Yeah.
You know. But cheesy. So what are you working on, Guy?
So, sorry, apologies for continuing to work here. Monday's my normal night off for modelling, but while you've been talking, I've been producing this.
Oh, a stone bale.
So it's a Gabion basket, I think is the name for it. But this is one of Brian's etched baskets.
That's nice.
So I need a lot of them. So they take about 20 minutes each to do. I've done 6 of them. So bear with me a minute.
They look good then.
So this is where they go. Not going to work, is it? There's 4 in place.
Is that me seeing a class 91 near your right arm?
Quite.
Yeah.
Cabinets of stock.
And 31413.
Yes. That's Tom's. And 47901.
Oh yeah, that one. I'm hoping to do one of those when the roof is done. Brian said he was going to do a roof etch.
It's the Lima version.
Yeah.
In fact, Tom Harwin's Lima version of the 47901. It's a Lima body stuck onto. I stuck onto a Vitrain chassis and chip in it. So I mean that'll operate on the layout for a while until get around to doing one based on the Vitrain's body.
All right.
But it needs quite major surgery to the roof.
Yeah, the roof is quite detailed. Yeah, it's also, I don't know if you've ever noticed, it's got a pair of 56 exhausts on the roof as well.
I
don't know what your model's got, but the real one. In the center, it's 2 class 56 exhausts back to back. Yeah.
And these, so I've used my 3D printed Rovac vents here.
Yes,
I've got 8 Rovac vents.
I need to buy a stack of those.
Same thing that you'll find on obviously a Mark III.
Yeah.
And a Mark II.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to buy a stack of those myself. I've had to make a very pragmatic decision. I needed 33 Mark II Fs, and at the way costs are rising, by the time Bachmann bring them out, they're going to be 50 quid a piece, and there's no way I can afford that kind of money. So I'm having to. I'm buying the Mark II Es from Hornby, and I'm going to be converting them with some underframe modifications and the proper roof vents. So yeah, it's going to be a fair amount of work. But I'll be designing.
I don't think it's a bad model, to be honest.
No, I don't think it's a bad model. To convert it to an, it could do with some extra details on it, and you've got to drop that sole bar so it doesn't have the line underneath it. But that's not too big a deal. That's what modeling's about. But to convert it to an F, E's and F's are slightly different. With an E, it's got 2 small circular fans for the air compact, and on most of the Mark II Fs, it's got a large version on it. And there's a box missing on one side and a slightly different box, and it's just some little variation. So what I want to do is make them as 3D parts. So you can just clip on, cut a piece off, clip another piece on, and get it done quick. Because you know, if I had to spend, you know, 5 hours working on a couple of coaches, and I've got 33 of them that I need to do this on, it's going to take an awful lot of time. Whereas 3D printing, you know, doing one design 3D printed and creating a batch of them is far more economic.
Yeah, indeed. Just speed the whole process up.
Yeah, I actually came to a realization, I said it in my introduction video, that I've realized that time is a more important commodity. You know, that I'm prepared to repaint things and things like that. But, I mean, for example, a few years ago, I did a pair of Bream runners with a BDA, so an engineering, you know, train. And let's see if I can find it for you. So I wrote it for Rail Express. Here we go. So I wrote this for Rail Express a few years ago, and it's just as it is on the top. So it's just a couple of RRA runners with a BDA with a longer rail section on top, and you know, it's just a couple of VDA chassis. Now, if we zoom in, you can see the number. I've got the correct number, but these numbers are like 1 millimeter tall, and it's very fine work. So to try and get it in there in the rub-on transfer, and it took me a day to convert the 2 wagons, and you know, so a couple of days to do the work outside of repainting, to do the load and all that kind of stuff. But then it took me another day to put the tiny transfers on. So what I'm going to do is get some transfers made. So instead of having to stick every single number on individually, and for example, for this one here, where this transfer here was actually wider than the space that it could fit on, but it was the only one that was available. So it was that or nothing. It works out more cost effective to get a sheet of decals done for me, and just to cut them off and stick them on with the numbers that I already have, rather than having to do them all individually, because it's cheaper. That sometimes spending a bit more money is, you know, is cheaper than putting every single number on. I mean, this one, for example, I had to change the number to 038. Looks like I've done a rough job on that one. But, you know, if I'm having to take one bit and renumber a bit of it, that's taking a lot of time. And when I've listened to other modelers say, well, I've only got a certain amount of modeling life left in me, I need to get these things done for me instead of doing something for you, you know, it made me look at myself and say, you're right. You know, let's make things quicker. You know, I mean, I did this coach. This is just an RMB, and I did some extra bits. I did some plugs and, you know, some steps and things like that. But I also did the work for it to be dual braked, because you can't get this on any model. And let me find, I've got another shot. So this took me several hours to do. If I've got a rake of 8 coaches that all require this, you know, that's, if I create these as components that can just be stuck into place and you just add the extra bits to connect it all together, that works as more cost effective than it does the time it takes to do all the work. If it took me 3 hours to do that, and I've got 10 wagons, that's 10 coaches. That's a lot of work.
Makes a lot of sense to get them made up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing about DEMU really, is that members who are able to design this stuff available. It's really, I mean, I for one look at some of the stuff that people have done on the forum with the designing stuff through taking 3D printing as an example, and then making it available and showing the CAD work on the forum and stuff. I think it's great because for me personally, although I've dabbled with CAD in the past, I couldn't really find myself getting on with it. So it's I mean, I doubt whether I'd be able to sort of go along the road of designing any of my own components. So if people are willing to make their stuff available, then that's good for other people who don't think they can go down that road. It's really good.
I actually think that's one of the avenues that DEMU has got going for it.
It's got great potential to go somewhere.
Mm. Yeah, I'll show you the 3D component that I designed for.
Yeah.
Just waiting for it to load up. So this is the air conditioning pack for a Mark II F, and it took me a few hours to make it, but making one of these and getting it 3D printed is a lot cheaper and cost more efficient with my time than scratch building every single one of them. And I can actually do this in much higher detail.
Yeah. You can see the great detail in just the CAD, Dave. Yeah, that's really good. You can get a look for how the finished product will end up. It's a lot of detail there.
And if you've got a huge rake, then it really pays dividends, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah. You can get some of you don't have the tooling costs as such as well to worry about. Which is if you were making your own etches, you have those sort of things to worry about. But 3D printing, unless you've got your own printer, you don't really have that to worry about. So it's an easier way for an individual to help themselves, but it's basically, it allows you to make things that are never likely to be made available because there's not the market potentially.
It does.
I mean, there are some people who do full cars for it. Detail is really good, but obviously the cost is a huge factor.
Yeah. It's going back to what Dave was saying there about actually sitting down and making. I've been working on a couple of Bachmann VGA vans recently. I'm just going through the process of getting them ready for repainting for the second time. To cut a long story short, I made a bit of a pig's ear of the weathering of them, and it's one of those things where you think, basically, I was working from photos, as I do for all my modeling, as we all do, and I saw this photo of two of these vans together, and they were really filthy, and I thought, well, I'll have a go at that. And it's, where you get to that stage where you're weathering something and you think, well, you'll just add a little bit more. Did that, and at the time, as I put it on, it looked okay, but once I varnished models and put them down and looked at them, and I thought, no, I don't like that. So so off came the paint, and I'm going through the process again. But what I looked at was when I bought these secondhand a few years ago, they didn't have any brake levers. As Dave said, actually sitting down and making some components, making something for like brake levers, which sounds simple, but having done it for a couple of Albright and Wilson PCAs that I did, it does take a lot of time. Now, if something like that was available, it would really speed things up. But unfortunately, it isn't. So I'll have to sit down and make some up from plastic strip. So there we are.
But the nice thing is that this is what modeling's about. And I think, and this is what I was talking about earlier, I think there's a problem that this aspect of the hobby seems to be falling away as we have locos with, with roof fan and grills and handrails built into them. People aren't doing the modeling anymore. They're not, they're thinking, oh, will it do? And that's perfectly fine if you're doing that on your home layout, but when you're doing that at a show, what is it you're trying to say to you? What are you trying to say? Because a layout at a show, you're not just showing about what the models are, you're actually telling something about yourself, what your attention to detail is, what your interests are. And if you've got a club, for example, you're having to say, this is what our club is about, this is what we do, and this is what we like. And if everything is out of the box and on the track, what are you saying about your club? Is that as far as it goes? And so, I mean, that's the reason why I started this channel, because, I want to see people pushing the boundaries. And I think that's one of the things that's gotten lost in many people. It's the reason why I like DEMU, because you can, it's weird to say it's almost competitive. It's not necessarily competitive, but you see people doing something beyond your level and you think, oh, that's quite nice. How did you do that? And then they explain it, and then you think, I think I could do that. And so you're pushing your boundaries. You're basically putting you further, you're setting your levels slightly higher all the time in order to try and get that much closer to what the modeling is about, which is replicating the real thing that we see. What do the rest of you think that way?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Dave. Yeah, that's what it is for me. I like to improve on things, whenever I can. Even some stuff that I look at that I've done only 3 or 4 years ago, I think, oh, maybe I could have done that a bit better. And then when you come to do the next model, you'll think back and think, okay, well, I didn't do that last time. I'll do it this time around. And then that's what it's all about. You improve yourself. It's not necessarily thinking of it in a competitive way. It's coming down to being inspired again. Somebody might do something that you haven't done, and you think, well, I'll have a go at that. That's what it's all about.
But it's not so much competing with other people; it's competing with yourself.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, it's saying to yourself that, and okay, yeah, it's proving to yourself that you can do it. When you do it and you see it done, you think, yeah, I can do that. It's a good achievement for yourself as well. It's good.
You were going to say something, Guy.
Oh, I think that's probably a good way of thinking about it, to be honest, competing with yourself. You also need to know when to stop and not go any further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it becomes a bit obsessive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to make that decision myself that, I think I probably have the skills, or certainly can learn the skills to do something like P4. But the cost is too high. I've got about 800 pieces of rolling stock, and to convert all of those for P4 and build all my own track, that would be quite a I mean, it'd be a great challenge, but for a big layout, no. Maybe for a small layout.
Big
That would
time there, isn't there?
But again, if you're investing your time on, you know, something else, you're not investing your time on the other bit, you know. So I had to, I had a couple of ideas for a couple of really nice exhibition layouts, but unfortunately, I don't drive, so there would be no way to transport it around, and it wasn't going to be a huge thing. It was only going to be about, you know, by the time you got a couple of fiddle yards on either end, you know, traverses, it would have been maybe 15 feet long maximum. But not being able to drive, it's how do I get it to somewhere? Would I be able to say, you know, I don't know, I'll use Wayne as an example. Hey, Wayne, you can drive, can't you? What are you going to be doing next September because I got an invite to a show? You know, how are you able to justify that time? You know?
Yeah.
So,
I see what you mean. Yeah. It's difficult. It's difficult. You're then relying on somebody else to give up their free time rather than just yourself and your own free time. You know. Yeah.
Yeah, and not only that, is like, you know, not only am I inviting them to help me run a layout for the weekend, but I'm asking them to do all the driving as well.
Yeah.
You know, that it's not just, you know, effectively I'm using them, and I wouldn't want to be in that position.
Yeah, that's understandable. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Going back to the operating of layouts, Natalie makes the forum in the chat because she's another camera, so she's not joining. That to her, operating correctly is to some extent more important than the detail level of the stock.
Yeah, that's...
my opinion is that it should be balanced as best as you can.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you know, I think there's another issue that's there, which is running you know, prototypically. I mean, I've seen layouts where you got a rake of engineering open wagons, and someone's got clam and rud and, you know, and taupe and OBAs, you know, bass, all together in one train. It's like, wait a second, they can't work in the same brakes. Some are vac brakes, some are air brakes. How does that work?
Yeah, that's quite true, Dave. Yeah. Sorry.
Say again, Kelly.
That's basically just called not doing your research, or not paying attention. But anyway, Wayne, carry.
Sorry. Yeah, thanks, Kelly. No, I was just going to say that as a particular interest of mine is freight rolling stock. I've never really had a particularly keen interest in passenger stock, shall we say, although it is part of railways, obviously. Something like that, as Dave said, then is a real pet hate of mine. You know, I instantly say, you know, you can't have those together because they've got air brakes and they've got vacuum brakes. You know, it's because, and I know why it is, and I'm sure we all do it. It's because I look at myself as a prototypical modeler, and you just wouldn't see something like that. So if I see that on a layout in my mind straight away, it's, well, you wouldn't see that. You know, you wouldn't see ruds and clams in the same train, you know, taken, as Dave said, as an example there. You know, you just wouldn't see it. But yeah, it is a pet hate of mine. But, you know, if I'm not an elitist, you know, if that's what somebody wants to do, then that's fine, you know. But for me, you know, I wouldn't do that, basically. No. That might sound a bit blunt.
Well, I think it's also, how do you explain these things? Because, you know, we're not all geniuses that know everything. There are holes about, you know, I mean, the southern region, I have big holes that I really don't know I don't know routes. I don't know certain lines. I don't know a lot of stuff that was withdrawn. You know, early, you know, subs and knolls and all sorts of other old unit.
The three-letter codes get very complicated.
Yeah.
So, because some of them are made up on the spot.
Yeah. But what I'm trying to say is that there are holes that we have in our information. And so if we don't know something and we're interested to know something, we'll go out and learn. But, and I think that, you know, people don't realize that they're making a mistake. So how do you point it out without saying, yeah, that's not quite how they would work, you know? And you want to say it in a way that doesn't come across as being obnoxious. You know,
it's tricky. Yeah, it is.
How do you share information? I mean, I remember for an example is, I remember someone on the forum saying, painting a departmental grey 31. And I sent them a private message and I said it in such a, you know, I said it in as nice a way as possible so that, you know, it was all caveated. So I didn't sound like I was just being a, you know, a nitpicking arse, basically. And I sort of say, just thought you should know the roof is supposed to be executive dark grey, because they painted it in departmental grey. And it's just that loco, because there are a few, I mean, some 47s, 47300 as an example, where the roof was painted in departmental grey. You know, civil engineers with a departmental grey top instead of the dark executive dark grey livery on colour on the top. You know, those are the you know, little details that I know because I'm kind of a bit, you know, I'm a livery nerd. But you know, how do you point that out to someone? Well, you've got to point it out as nicely as you can without it sounding like you're telling them off.
Yeah.
You know, educate rather than, you know, insult.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Try and, you know, you need to try and make it sound constructive, not destructive, if that's the right word.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's tricky, because if you do it, you know, something like a private message, you know, it's easy for people to take written words the wrong way these days. And it's, you know, it's one of those things in life that, you know, it needs some thought.
I remember many years ago upsetting a really good friend of mine. And that was how I learned netiquette, because I got Asperger's. What goes through my head tends to fall out of my mouth. And so what happened was he said, so, you know, this is so long ago. This is like 1990, maybe 2000, 2001, something like that. So he said, have you got the latest Platform 5 combi book? I said, yes. He said, go and get it. So he pointed me towards the Class 47 picture, and so there's a 47 going through Doncaster, and walking away up the platform is my mate. And I just said to him, you know, I said, oh, who's that big bugger then? And it was purely meant as, like, you know, a joke. It was, you know, not to be offensive at all. He didn't speak to me for 2 or 3 days, and I had to apologize. And what I effectively learned about that is that a lot of what we do is body language. Yeah. So if I say, oh, Wayne, you silly ass, or something like that, you know, you can tell from the tone of my voice and the smile on my face that I'm only making a joke. If you don't see the video, and you can hear the tone of my voice, but if you only see that in text, you know, depending on how it's delivered, sometimes you'll read it as negative and sometimes you'll read it as positive, depending on your mood sometimes. So it's important to be able to transfer what you're trying to say without making sure that someone can't take the wrong version of what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. And that's a tricky thing. You know, that's something that, you know, if it's going to be text based, then it needs a bit of thought. before you press that send button.
What was the phrase? Hit send and you made it with a friend.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I see that. Sorry, I see that Guy's dropped out. He did pop up a message earlier saying that he had to go.
Yeah. To be honest, we've gone past the hour now, but I mean, I can keep talking if I'd like to, but
yeah,
I don't mind.
Well, I'll probably drop out myself in a bit. Got an early start in the morning, so I'll probably be off in a sec.
Yeah, probably a good idea then. So I think we're going to wrap it up. Anything that you two want to say before we finish?
I can't think of much. Thank you. I'll try and be around for the next one, depending on when it is.
Yeah, I want to make these hangouts popular enough to watch. There's a lot of things that as a society we can share, and it'd be nice to to get things out there. Show what a nice group we are on the inside.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea, Dave. Yeah, I think it's got great potential. Yeah, I don't know if take Guy as an example. I don't know if he dropped out, but I don't know if he's still watching this. But didn't get a chance to say. But just to say, good job on the showcase, and look forward to the next one.
Yeah. Okay, right. Well, we're going to go now. So thank you everybody for watching. I hope you've had a good time. Hopefully, we're going to get even more people and have more varied things to talk about. If you have anything to say about this, leave a message underneath. If you want to subscribe, if you want to like, go ahead. So thank you very much. Enjoy your day. You want to say bye, everybody?
Bye, guys. Happy modeling.
Bye, everybody.
All the best.
Take care.